Auntie G and Mumsy B from the Blackthorn Path here,
inviting you to join us Sunday evenings for an hour of magic and myth,
story and song,
spells, rituals and recipes,
and a whole lot more. That's the Blackthorn Path.
Sundays at 8 Eastern, 7 Central
on CJMarsRadio.com.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio. I'm your host, Roger Belt, along with my co-host, Cindy John Pierre. And
Hey.
Yeah, stepped on your toe again.
Hi there, Roger.
Holler.
What?
How come you didn't holler? I stepped on your toe again.
There you go. Well, hello, everybody. Hi.
And our special guest tonight is Kenny Attison of Lights Paranormal.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Everybody is doing good over here, and hope you're doing pretty good over there. Kenny is an interesting fellow. I listened to a show last night with him and a couple other people talking about haunted prisons, and that was interesting. If you want, you can put that link up later on. So everybody can go check that out.
Okay, great. That would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we're going to talk about several different things. We don't have a necessarily set topic. We're going to talk about the Amityville haunting and Long Island haunts and devil worshiping and a book that him and I both have read that it was like really, I don't know so much. It kind of has to do with devil worship in a way, I guess. The book was called Say You Love Satan. And if anybody's read it and knows who we're talking about, this kid was like way, way, way out in left field. I mean, you know, drug related and all that, but he got into some really spooky, creepy stuff, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Amityville. Now,
yes, sir.
The Warrens originally did the investigation of the Amityville house. Am I not correct there?
Yes. And there was a couple other investigators. Their names escape me, but one was I believe what the heck is his name? I forgot, but there's a couple other investigators that were along with the Warrens on there, along with the news crew as well.
Right. Now, I knew Ed and Lorraine, of course, you know, did the original. And before the actual haunting claims and all that, Ronnie DeFeo, as everybody knows, killed his family in the house. And there was something about a room that he found in the basement that was painted solid red. And when was it built and who built it? You know, who lived there before them? That would be interesting to find out who actually did that room and what was that room actually used for.
Well, according to the son, David, I believe his name is, he said it wasn't an actual room. It was a little, kind of like a little nook underneath the stairs. And he said that they used, you know, it was just storage for like toys and various things. It wasn't actually like a red room like they painted it in the actual Amityville Horror House movie. It was pretty much, if anything, I would say like maybe like a 6 foot by like 3 foot 3 foot space that they just used storage for under for various things or whatnot. He said it wasn't painted red, and pretty much, there wasn't anything really, there was no activity there when he lived there, and so there's always conflicting stories when you're dealing with Ronald and his wife's, not Ronald, I'm sorry, George Lutz and his wife's account. Even within his own family, there was there's a lot of turmoil because of this whole scenario.
Well,
So,
now I also heard that they claimed that later on that the whole thing was a hoax, that they did it just to sell that book and everything like that. So it kind of leads you to believe, was this whole thing just to sell a book and movie rights, or was there some actual truth to it? Or
Uh-oh.
Now, Ronnie DeFeo supposedly heard voices that told him to go kill his family.
No, exactly. I mean, nobody could question the events that happened with the DeFeos. When you start getting into the Lutzes, my personal opinion on that is that George Lutz was into some kind of occultish stuff, and in him doing that, he was actually the one that was haunted in the house, not really the house itself. I think the house reacted, and more of the house and the land reacted to, him bringing that sort of energy in there.
Right.
In the years following, the Lutzes moving out and all that stuff, there really hasn't been any public, mention of any further activity in that house. So I mean, and I hate saying that, some people, say in that case, oh well, Ed and Lorraine Warren lied about it. They fabricated all this stuff. They're this and that. I don't think that they fabricated. I think they were going based on the Lutz's account and the events that happened while the Lutzes were in the house. Which if obviously George was, carrying around a lot of energy with him from his various things that he was doing, it would have an effect on the house, in proximity to the time that he was in there. Eventually, those energies do desist. The energies from the actual land itself don't go, haven't gone away.
Well, I think that when you do, especially if you're doing cult-related stuff like that, that the house kind of would absorb those energies, just like a residual haunting. You know what I mean? It's going to absorb the negative effects and all that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Kenny, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, as far as Robert DeFeo was concerned, now I know there's a lot of things that I have yet to have explained to me, like, how come none of the neighbors heard a shotgun go off that many times?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the questions that I even have these days.
And why didn't it wake any of the other family members while he was going around doing this?
Exactly. One of the things that they speculate about too is that Dawn was involved as well, which was his sister at the time. And then when they were done with what they were doing, he shot her too.
Do you think there's a possibility that DeFeo was involved in occult activity?
I think, okay, pretty much the way I look at Ronald and the paranormal. He was heavily into drug use. He was heavily into drinking. He had, he was not very stable. In those type of situations where you're putting yourself in that kind of sedative state, you're open to suggestion. Now, it could be positive or negative. Usually negative comes in, more quickly because, there's always that kind of struggle happening, with the, the energy around us. It's just a natural balance. Him in that induced drug state he could have been, possessed or oppressed to the point where, it kind of aided in what he was doing. Now, what I'm saying is there's no, absolute fact behind this. This is just my interpretation, based on my knowledge of, paranormal activity and things that I've experienced and things that, I've read on and learned throughout the years. Like I said, anybody that's dealing with any sort of illness, whether it be physical, mental, there's a reason why they always wind up going into a depression, and it's because it's not just because of the ailment that they're facing. It's also because they're exhibiting negative, a kind of negative energy about them because there is something wrong with them, and there's a law of attraction that says what you put out you receive back, and just pretty much if you're putting out negativity is going to come back to you. Now, whether it be it's not judgmental. It doesn't pick on one person, not the other. The only difference is that some people might be more susceptible to influence like that than others. Me, I'm pretty darn influenced by the energies around me. So unfortunately, I get to feel things that a lot of people don't.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that both of those families were influenced by whatever it was in that room in the basement?
I think they were more influenced by the Indian history there. There was a lot of, I forget the exact timeline, but in the 1600s there was an Indian burial. There was an Indian burial ground there. While Amityville was actually being developed, they kind of just tore it apart and said, hey, never existed. Like a lot of areas on Long Island. Now we know that the Indians are pretty spiritual people, and also, they, it's not like, how can I describe it? It's a very broad subject. Not saying that a whole bunch of, evil spirits and good spirits were controlled by the Indians, but they recognized these energies in nature, and they used these energies and manifested them kind of like poltergeists almost to protect certain areas. They have protectors of these sacred grounds that they have, and they kind of willed it there. It was really kind of an early form of a PK manifestation, where if, something was disturbed, it's kind of like, not necessarily the, whoever is there is cursed, but just the whole general whoever is there is cursed, and see you later because you weren't supposed to disturb this land.
Well,
I think that
also people who are afflicted with mental disorders or drug-induced stupor, so to speak, are a lot easier to be attached and possessed than your average person. So if there were Native American spirits there who were ticked off, and this guy's depressed and not in his right head and doing drugs and drinking and all that, he would be an easy mark for something like that.
Exactly. And I think that had a really big role in both Ronald DeFeo and George Lutz.
Exactly.
George Lutz kind of, he didn't, well, to my knowledge, he didn't use any drugs or anything, but because he was into that sort of activity of, kind of experimenting.
Yeah.
He made him.
Was there any evidence that George Lutz was abusive as maybe Mr. DeFeo was? We all know Mr. DeFeo was abusive, but what about George Lutz?
His wife did make claims that at times he was abusive, not really anything heavy, but more verbally, and he did hit her a few times. She did come out with that. They did divorce after pretty much the whole movie thing blew up, she said, it was because things weren't working out. There's usually a lot of details that aren't really, explored when these sort of things happen. Some things are kept quiet within the family. The only person that really kind of brought many things to kind of light is their son. When he did my Amityville Horror, it was a movie that he made. Now, some people speculate, well, he's just, really mad that, all this stuff happened and whatnot. There's really no clarification. There's a lot of valid points, but no real factual, accountability. I don't trust media very well in explaining stories. Any kind of documentary that I see, I follow up with my own research. What I've kind of discovered is just a really big circle of, okay, well, this goes back to this, what happened there. The same thing with the picture that they took. A lot of people disagree that was just a cameraman, that that wasn't the son. And some people say, no, that definitely was the son. Look at the, the similarities. So, I mean, it really resides in personal point of view. What you feel is really happened. We'll never really know. Ronald DeFeo, in his many documentaries from jail, has recanted certain things, has said certain things, and then taken them back. He had a little psychic program going on too, where this woman was doing it. And you know what? They always leave you with well, was this really true? So it's not like there's any. It's still not really put to rest 100%. At least in my opinion, there's no factual, real, answers to any of this. It's just that certain things happened. Yes, these historical things did happen that were true, but the accounts of the Lutzes, you could really kind of take it or leave it with that whole situation. It's really up to the individual.
Well, can I ask you how you first got involved with this and what, brought it to your attention, what made you research it, that kind of thing?
With the paranormal or with Amityville Horror?
Well, with the Amityville Horror, I mean, I'd like to know what first drew you to it and why.
Well, growing up, I live in Copic, which is a little bit more than a mile away from the actual Amityville Horror House. My parents moved here from Queens in 1970. I think it was 1972, and then the whole DeFeo thing happened in 1973, I believe it was. Yeah, no, 1974. I'm sorry. Which was actually 1 month before my brother was born. So I grew up with stories about, we moved here and then, a month before your brother was born, my parents were almost ready to move out of where we were, because they were just like, oh my God, and just flocks upon flocks of people passing by the house and, and being in such proximity, my parents just moved from Queens, so they were like, did we make a mistake by coming out here? What's the kind of what should we do? We stayed here, so that kind of was, I guess, my first interest. Plus, obviously, the Long Island thing. Everybody has probably seen the Amityville Horror House, the Amityville Horror House, or we've seen the movies. We all have our own takes on what happened and stuff like that. So I mean, it's kind of like, it's one of those situations where how can you not know about it at some point, especially something to that degree. And I was telling Roger before, actually, the cemetery that I worked at has the DeFeos buried there. So every Halloween you get a bunch of kids with black makeup on saying, "Hey, yeah, we're family." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, no, you got to leave." So it's one way or another. I'm sorry.
Wasn't there another house like down the street from that was supposed to have had a bad reputation also?
Yeah, that one is not really too much heard about, but there was supposed activity in that area. Honestly, you go into certain towns, and you just feel like the first thing you think of, especially if you're sensitive, is you get the feeling of it being cursed. Because every time I know you guys don't know, the exact borders, of towns around here, but I would say if I at least go starting from East Massapequa, going eastbound to Amityville and Copig, you just get a feeling of being cursed, like of something being cursed here. It's just that's the name of the game. I mean, 3 miles away from my house was one of the bloodiest Indian settler battles, for land. Thousands of people died, and now it's just a reservation. It's all wooded, and stuff still happens in there these days that are, you get kids in there doing crazy rituals, and there's been bodies found in there, and so I mean, you just have activity. I don't think that there's not one place on here that, if you're sensitive enough to it, that you can't find activity. This place is just drenched in history. I mean, that's just one facet, and that's recent stuff. Long Island history goes back to the 1600s, the early 1600s, and there was battles back then to get the land and all that stuff, and it's just crazy. So I mean, that's the Amityville place. The Amityville area is just one facet, and they've had their own history itself, because they're just they're an entity in themselves, kind of sort of they're an incorporated town, so they kind of have their own history.
I would be interested to know how much Native American spirits had to do with all that stuff that went on, though, really. I mean, in a in-depth kind of way. Because you can't help but think that, I don't care, contrary to what people say, because a lot of people say, well, spirits won't hang out in a cemetery. They're going to go all, well, that's not necessarily true. And if you have a bunch of Native American spirits buried in a burial ground, and you just go in there and tear it all to pieces so you can build houses on it, you don't think they're going to be ticked off and react?
Well, this is the way I kind of try to explain it to people. I worked at a Catholic cemetery. Okay, so being in that faith, they sanctified a certain area of ground to Catholics who have passed away that want to return to heaven and all that stuff, and complete their mission, and it's God's promise that we have a home when we pass away. It's the same thing with the Indians. Just because it was a couple of thousand years ago doesn't mean that this area was not as equally sacred, and it wasn't blessed. I mean, even if you just didn't know even if you knew just a tiny bit about Indian history, they were very spiritual people. You know that they were very territorial about their sacred grounds, and it's not just the spirits, it's not just the bodies that were buried there. They sanctified these grounds so that other people, especially the white man, because when we were attacking and killing, they were killing and attacking us. We're fighting over land and all that stuff. Here and whatnot. They literally put curses on any on these areas if any white man decided to go here and try to take it over. And they wound up doing it. And so, I mean, it's only, it's only, heck's the word for it? I don't know.
Well, it just makes sense that, they would react. It's just, same way,
I thought I lost you guys for a second.
Same way I would if I buried a family member and somebody went and defiled their gravesite, I mean, I'd want to mess them up.
Yeah, I mean, just because time passes by doesn't mean that anything is anything is less important or anything isn't less sacred. One thing that I do with with trying to spiritually heal people and just bless cleanse my personal area and stuff is the power of intention. You set your intention of what you want the space to be. And we also do this for house cleansings too. You know, when we do residential, places, where we're dealing with private family members and whatnot. You set the intention of how you want the house to be, and we teach the family members how to do the same thing so that they could have peace in their home to kind of take charge. And that's what it is. It's protecting our space from things that we don't want in it. Now, whether it be paranormal or physical, it kind of resides in the same thing. It's just that one side doesn't have bodies and one side does. That's all it is. The best way I could describe coming into contact with a spirit is, well, you walk into a room, you see somebody, they give you a dirty look, and you just know that there's something going on with them. It's the same thing with spirits. Every spirit has their own personality, just like every human does, because most of them are earthbound. Some of them kind of, are here from other areas, from other times, from other, how can I describe it? Other areas of the source, or by source meaning God, if you want to put it in that term. That's God is just what I use, to describe that universal energy. And it's pretty much, that's how it is. You get a variety of different energies. It's no different from if you were just coming into contact with a random human. It's just that, one, like I said, one has a body, one doesn't.
Well, anyways, it's all kind of it's sad when you think about that. That they just went in there and destroyed all that, just to build, and I could see why a house would be unsettled. Excuse me.
Well, I wanted to know if, well, now, Kenny, I know you live over in that direction, and there's a lot of different mass murders. I mean, mass homicides and families that have gone on over there. Like, take for instance, the Litz family, where the father killed the mother, the wife, and the three children, and escaped for something like 40 years before the law actually caught up with him. And that was all done in a home. I wonder, do they investigate all these sites or just ones like the Amityville Horror?
You mean paranormal groups?
Yeah.
Or just in general? I don't really. I kind of talk to some other groups around here. I personally do it. I go in, for my group at least, I go in places of interest that I feel attracted to. And usually for some reason, I'll run by a place, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a quote unquote known place, but just like a place of interest that I feel that I need to explore more into. Other groups in the area have done various other things, and it really comes down to just the red tape factor in a lot of these places. Either it's hush hush, the family doesn't want to talk about it, it's in the past, or if it's a commercial building, you have to talk to the state, because most of these places are state owned. Whether it be on a grounds itself or just the building itself, that it's state owned. It's just a ton of red tape to try to talk to somebody to get them, because they don't want. It's kind of like a hush hush kind of thing. Like, they don't want the history revealed. And that's what I've experienced in a lot of places that I've tried to investigate and go through the proper channels to do. So it's really kind of in residential places like that have had murders in them. I'm sure that the families don't want any sort of publicity or whatever, because they see a bunch of people with cameras that think they're going to be on TV, and most people that I meet do that know that I'm a paranormal investigator do open up about their experiences, but not to the extent where they're just like, yeah, come on in and let's see what you find. I think most people don't want to know. They're happy living in their physical world where it's just okay. The wife comes home, the husband comes home, we make dinner, we put the kids to sleep and all that. It's not really, they don't want to hear about any sort of bloody history, or if they heard about it, they most certainly don't want expound upon it. It's kind of still frowned upon a little bit.
Yeah,
Even
yeah, I can understand.
even with the Amityville, the DeFeo house, the neighbors just wanted to, end already. They wanted to, it's been 40 something years, and you still get people passing by. I'm unfortunately one of them, but I do it very extremely sporadically. Because I drive by the place mainly just to just to see the feelings that I get. I don't intrude. I don't go up to the door and knock on it and say, "Hey, how you doing? Can I do?" Because there is somebody there now.
Let me ask you this: what are your feelings when you come up on it now?
I don't really get much. Besides Indian stuff, because I try to see how my feelings and my impressions of the place add up to, all the hearsay and the accounts and whatnot. I don't really feel any sort of I'm going to put it in the words demons, that are there tormenting anybody the way the Lutzes described it. And the house is not an evil house. It's a very peaceful house in a peaceful neighborhood. It's just that there were Indians there,
you don't get the hair standing up on your arms or anything like that.
No, not at all. I don't get nausea. I don't get lightheadedness, dizziness, and I mean, I've been on the furthest I go is on the driveway. Just to see what's going on. I don't feel any of that, to be honest with you. And not saying that that's the say all, the end all of well, that's that. I would absolutely jump at the chance of investigating there, but only to see how I respond to it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get you to hold your thought there. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host Roger Belt and your co-host Cindy John Pierre, and our special guest is Kenny Attison of Lights Paranormal. And we will continue now. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. I was actually going to respond to Dita on here. She said, the spirits may be at peace with you. Now, the way I feel it is every person, every individual in having our own frequency of, who we are that makes us up in this physical world. When we go into a place, whatever we're personally in tuned at that moment is pretty much going to influence the energy around us. I feel that if anything, now I never really explored, what, like I said, what Dita said about, being at peace with me, but I think if anything, they do understand that, and I'm talking about Indians. I'm not talking about, these creepy crawlies, the face coming out of the wall and all that stuff. I'm talking about the actual history that I feel there. They know that I'm there. They see me. I see them. Sometimes when I'm sitting out on my in my backyard as I am now, I will see a kind of an Indian spirit. They represent themselves to me more as like an animal spirit, and that's how I could kind of sense that that's an Indian kind of spirit. It's not threatening. It's not here to do harm to me. It's just saying I'm protecting because that's what I've always done and that's what I'm always going to do for as long as I have to do it. So they just kind of stand there. They're about 7 feet tall. They have a human body but head of an animal. And I know that sounds really crazy, and whatever it is, what it is. But that they're just more protectors, and they just look at me, I look at them. And that's about it. I go about my business. It's always a little shock at first when you see something because, that's your normal body's reaction to it. That's your body sensing the spirit and the spirit putting, its energy across to you to try to communicate. So, besides that, it's nothing out of the ordinary, really. Like I said, it's more cursed because of the disrespect that was shown, rather than the individual themselves, if that makes sense.
And it does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
We talked a little bit. You and I had a good little talk, and several things came up. Cropsy among some of them.
Yes.
And
Cropsy.
yes, I went and watched that documentary or whatever after CJ and I had talked about that. Now, if I'm not mistaken here, this was a uh, fiction movie or documentary, right?
Well, it's one of those things that the documentary was more. If it's the same documentary that I'm thinking of, it was the gentleman and the woman that were going around Staten Island. The documentary was put into place to raise, kind of like compare the two. There was an actual gentleman that they believe is connected with all of these children disappearing from the Staten Island area. His name is Andre Rand.
Right.
Yes.
He was convicted of these disappearances. They do believe that there was some sort of ritualistic. He was, a cult that he was attached to. The Order of the was it the Order of the Black something or whatever. That was predominant in that time in that area. But the whole thing is that they were just in that documentary. They were comparing the two, of the Cropsy legend kind of coming into life with Andre Rand and, him being Cropsy, and making that legend come true. Pretty much I've talked about before, that, with other people, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. The legend becomes, actual real life events. So that was the whole thing with the whole Cropsy legend with Willowbrook and Willowbrook. I mean, was an asylum for a while, and the extent of care or lack thereof severely, has its own mark on that area.
Exactly.
I think that's where the documentary is real, is because Geraldo Rivera did go in there and did bust them for such maltreatment of the people in there that they actually closed the place directly right thereafter. And that's when this Andre escaped or whatever and started living in this. Yeah, he started living in the basement and the surrounding woods. Is that the story or what?
Yeah, 10 years. I think about 10 years after Geraldo Rivera did his thing, they've. I believe it was Robert Kennedy finally said that this place is not acceptable for anybody to be here, so they closed it down. Andre Rand was actually, I believe, a custodian worker in Willowbrook, and that's why he was there afterwards. They described him as a drifter. He actually was kind of, had establishments where he resided, but it was just more along the lines where he was just a kind of off, like the people in, I hate saying that, but there was something wrong with him too, just like there was supposedly at the patients at Willowbrook as well. So that's why he set up camp there when the place was closed. And pretty much history went from there. And I would assume in isolation of having this and being around the people kind of, some people looked up to him like kind of as a leader, and those people were also said to be a part of that cult that was supposedly Andre was running or a part of, or he was some sort of high person in that cult kind of thing.
Well, and they said also that when they closed that down, a lot of those patients didn't have anywhere to go, so they stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the basements and the lower, in the tunnels and whatever they were, and he basically had a camp out in the woods. That's where they found him at, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah, that's that he had two separate, I think 2 or 3 separate spots that he set up camp at, and they did find items that were very questionable, like girls' underwear and stuff to that nature. So
didn't they also find a little girl's body buried there close to his camp or something?
Yeah, about 200 feet away from one of his camps. Yes,
yeah.
And that's what led them to actually first indict him for that. He was actually brought up on charges before that of sexual misconduct while he was working in Willowbrook, but they dismissed the charges due to lack of evidence. So, he was kind of the perfect scapegoat for all of those things, and he fit the bill. Now he could have been a person that was just, nobody really knows anybody until, he could have been working and doing his regular thing, but there could have been some stuff going on inside him that, led him to snap or whatever. But the whole thing is that, he became this scapegoat for all of these missing children. And actually, there was one case that was documented and was brought to light that he kidnapped a bunch of kids, brought them to Newark Airport, and, pretty much was found out there because these kids finally realized, hey, we're being kidnapped. This is not normal. He said he was going to take them to go eat somewhere. So that also put a really big blow in anything, any consequence of him being innocent with that.
Was he ever classified as being mentally ill, or did they just find him guilty and put him in a prison? Is he institutionalized or what?
He's in jail. I don't believe they did any sort of psychological background on him, at least to my knowledge. They just pretty much said, you're the guy that we're looking for, and we're going to put you away to put all these people at ease. That's pretty much how that happened. I don't believe they really gave into any sort of, finding out extra, things about his persona or whatever. It's just guilty as charged, and we're going to try to put you in jail. And it took a while for them to put him in jail. He had a lot of different trials. He was actually, the first time I think he was mistrialed, and then they found it again. They brought him up just on another charge that they had him with just to keep him in there. And he's been in there, and then they finally charged him guilty.
Well, now when they went in there and this is after I think all this happened though. Excuse me. They went in there and they did find where rituals and stuff had been carried on in some of those rooms and stuff in there. And wasn't it true that he was supposed to have kidnapped some of those children for sacrifices for this group or whatever?
That was one of the things, yes. I forget the name of the group. It was like the Order of the Black something. I forget what it was.
The Order of the Black something when I watched that, but I don't remember the name. But yeah, he was supposed to have carried some of them into those tunnels where they did, I think, like sacrifices, to Satan or whatever through some of their rituals and stuff like that. And some of them I think he just kept to have his own way with. He was a sick dude.
Yeah. He was very, he definitely had something wrong with them, and in retrospect, looking at, the various jobs and residences that he had before, it's just like, wow, why was, how did this just all of a sudden happen? He had to have had, an extensive background with this, actually I believe in the documentary it said that his mother was a patient at Pilgrim State, which is so I mean, it could have been something with his mother too, but also, his sister said, well, that's just Aunt Andre, and so you never really know, what the and he's very cryptic about telling this story. People that have tried to interview him, he's either played games with or said, yeah, I'm going to talk, and then said, no, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah. He did that several times.
He does have intelligence to him, so he does know what he's doing to a certain extent. It's just, it could be just a case that something clicked in him and stuff went down, and there you go. That's pretty much it. And then he has to pay for it because that's what he did. But
yeah, I remember that part too. That he he would turn them down, and then he would wait a little bit, and then he would write them a letter and tell them that he would talk to them, but he had to have somebody present, or I think it was a lawyer one time, and it,
Oh, a lot of them do that, Roger. John Wayne Gacy was famous for that, and so was Charlie Manson. They
Yeah.
all play those games from prison.
and that kind of, in my opinion, shows a true serial killer mentality.
Yes.
Is somebody that'll play games with you even after they're locked up, because their mind is still living in that mentality.
Mm-hmm. But
And he,
yeah, so
he was
that's
very intelligent, although I don't think his elevator went all the way to the top.
no, definitely not.
That's the Roger Belt mental health diagnosis right there. I love you, Roger.
Thank you.
Elevator does not go all the way to top. Guilty.
Yeah,
That's
you
great.
break shy of a load, But anyway, um, I think a lot of them, because I've watched different videos on some of these other serial killers, and all of the tactics are familiar. They're a little different, and each one's a little different in their own way, but they all kind of have that same uh, very highly intelligent, sick mentality.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I
Gacy
mean,
was a genius. I don't care what anybody says. Now, he may have been a serial killer, but he was smart.
My question is how much of what we see there is an actual possession? Do you think when this happens, things like this happen, is there a certain amount of thought to a possession of this person, or what?
it really varies per person. That's actually a really good question.
Yes, it is.
I guess let me try to describe this. Sometimes people are oppressed and possessed and they don't know. And then you get that kind of perfect possession in some people where they want it, they love it, they enjoy it. Yes, bring me more. And I believe people that are sick to that level, where they already have the thoughts and they're there and they have that deep intent to carry out these things, that it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship where it's equally possessed, equally of will.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the person.
The reason I brought it up is because George Lutz, by all accounts, was said to have been obsessed with certain things while that whole deal was going on in Amityville, where he was either freezing cold or it was too
Right.
hot or something like that. And it makes me wonder, just the way he was portrayed, is if, these serial killers we're talking about weren't going through the same thing, and if it isn't a possession or an obsession, one of the two. I'm trying to figure the difference here.
The feeling I get from George Lutz in that aspect is that he was just dabbling with crap that he didn't understand. Would he have had the potential of harming somebody? Yes. But, like I said, some people aren't aware of it, and then, everybody has the choice, ultimately, what they let in, what they don't let in. And it's really individually based. But the feeling I get from George was that he dabbled in certain things, whether it be years before then or was doing it while he was in the house.
Well, now I got to ask, now that you brought that up, if he was dabbling in stuff, he didn't have a clue of what he was doing, and he was causing some of this stuff to go on, you would think that he would have still been doing what he was doing even after they moved from the house, and the stuff would still be going on wherever they lived at.
It's true. It just comes down to that the individual, and it's, it could have been, carried to another house, not too far after, the movie was made, and it was made, I believe like months or a year after their account was taken and all that stuff. But him and his wife separated, and they separated for a reason. Now that brings me to a question. Usually if a family experiences some sort of traumatic thing like that, wouldn't they bond together and not separate? So I believe there was, some things were mentioned, but some things were mentioned to try to explain very natural things that were going on that were wanting to be more kept to themselves. You know what I mean? So it's, it could have been a combination of paranormal stuff and simple abuse going on in the house that kind of also caused, the stir of activity in there.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of wondered about that myself. The fact that they did separate and that they won't talk about what made them separate. They never did before they died. It almost makes you, the thing that comes to my mind is maybe there was some kind of a cover up or something that finally just broke them up.
Yeah, it could have been. See, when you're dealing with stuff like an individual and then activity, we have, how many thoughts do we have a day, and how many thoughts do we act on, and how many thoughts do we keep to ourselves? How many, you got to look at it on that instance on the other side of the the human aspect, the paranormal side, where it's like, there's also, things taking place that we don't see going on, that we don't, experience, that are very much still happening and flowing, through our space or whatnot. And, it could be at times, he might have been slightly oppressed that annoyed him. It could have gotten to the, because of if he had an abusive nature as it is, maybe they influenced him at some points where he acted out, where he was just like, I don't know why I got angry, but I did. And at some other points it could have been like, well, I'm angry because, I'm, I don't want to say like an abusive part, like because I'm abusive, but, because he's prone to abusive behavior. So it could have been just a constant back and forth between, who George was and the activity that was already present there. It could have very well been, a situation where, whatever spirits, Indian kind of spirits were using him as a pawn to get them out of the house. And because maybe, there's so many different, scenarios that could have taken place. And I'm not talking about the movie stuff. I'm talking about like, based on the historical places as it is. If I wanted somebody out of my house, either A, I would tell them directly, or I would just be like, okay, well, you know what, this and that, and then, oh, well, we're going to leave on our own, and then when they close the door, I'd be like, yes, okay, that finally worked. You know what I mean? So, these spirits, in having this sacred ground, they would want some people out there. And, now you say, well, why didn't that happen to neighbors? Why didn't that happen to this person, that one? Two reasons come to mind instantaneously. One, because some people just have a very negative emotion about them and feeling about them that maybe they just thought it as more of a threat than the other neighbors. And two, it's a possibility that they just felt that I don't want this around the sacred space, and we can't really answer any of these questions, but these are questions that we could bring to mind and try to, to help explain the situation.
Oh,
Now,
I've heard that the evidence, the activity in that house. I've heard different explanations, and I've read the book and I've seen the movies, all of them. Oh boy. But in any case, how, as an investigator, both you and Roger, I want to hear this. What amount of that evidence do you think was for real? Because a lot of it adds up to a lot of things that I've heard from other people, but some of it doesn't. Now, Kenny, what's your take on the evidence? Do you think that most of it was the real thing or what?
When it comes to other people's evidence, I don't say yes, it's fake or yes, it's real. I just give my personal opinion on it. Because, I don't like stepping on other people's toes. B, I'm not that person. I wasn't there to personally experience it. So I can't really define anything as true or untrue. Actually what I was thinking about before you asked that question was when Lorraine Warren said, I will never step in this house again. The evil is just too big, blah, 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 great and whatever. You know what I'm saying? That could have been just from her experience. That doesn't necessarily go for everybody, every single other individual that decides to come in proximity to or live in the house or go in the house.
Right,
That's
because
just
it could have affected her differently than it did other people.
Yeah, and there are people that live there now. And, I mean, I don't really see them. They keep extremely to themselves. The only time that I've actually heard of there being a person, and before that, I was like, I don't even know if there's anybody living there. The only proof that I have of somebody actually living there was that my friend inadvertently went there on Halloween with her children, and she knocked on the door. They gave him candy. They said, Happy Halloween, et cetera, et cetera. And then her boyfriend said, you know what house that was, right? And she was like, no. And he was like, yep. So that was my only clue to somebody living there, recently. So other than that, they're very just want to keep to themselves. I don't usually see a car in the driveway either. There is absolutely no sign of, people living there other than just maybe a light turning on. And even then, with timers these days, you could have the lights turn on by themselves. It's not a problem. But, they just want to keep very to themselves, and even the neighbors, they just, they know you're there, they know why you're there, and they kind of like give you a look like, really, it's been 40 years, so I only stay there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes when I go at absolute extent, but the whole thing is it's the individual that goes there, like some people, even in any other place that people investigate, some people will get a whole lot of activity, some people won't feel anything. Now, I've seen some groups say, oh, well, you know what? You experienced a lot of activity. Yeah, that's a bunch of malarkey because, I didn't experience anything that you mentioned or anything at all when I was there. And that's absolutely not true. Not either group is correct, because we bring our own energy into these places, and these energies that are there, either by passing or there because, of historical reasons, interact with our energies, and that's why we either get, activity around us or not. It's not, it shouldn't be based on, one person's, account of what's going on. So kind of bringing it back to answer your question, I can't really speak for anybody else. When it comes to their conclusion or their, what they experience. All I could go is, okay, I'm here. Let's see what I get out of it.
Well, we have Dita in the chat room, and she wants your web address.
Oh, sure. I'm gonna I'll do that right now. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm one of those people that can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I can't type and I kind of did that.
Welcome to the club. Yep, welcome to the club.
So, when you get done with that, I got a question I want to ask you before we go to break, if we got time. Okay,
sure.
Cool. We were talking about the mentality of serial killers, like, the Cropsy killings and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And one comes to mind in particular, and I cannot think of his name off the top of my head, but this guy was so smart they couldn't catch him, and it was driving him nuts. So he started leaving them notes, and I'm not talking about the Zodiac either. I'm talking about somebody that would leave them notes, giving them hints.
The BTK killer did that too.
They still couldn't catch him.
And so did the Zodiac too. I don't know if
Zodiac did with the Zodiac signs and stuff, but this guy would write notes, literally giving them hints where he was, or where his next victim was going to be, or anything like that, and they still could not catch this guy. And it from what I understood, it was ticking him off, because they couldn't catch him, and he was getting bored, so he started leaving them even, notes with more info, like, I'm going to be at such and such and kill so and so, and.
There's quite a few people that come to mind. I don't know which one, to be honest.
they all have that ego. It's a big game with them that they want the police to catch them eventually, even if they don't say so.
Right.
And, go to great lengths to make sure they're noticed and publicized and their name gets out there because they've done this great thing in their mind.
Well, and some of them, I think, actually do believe that they're doing a civil service by killing some of these people.
Oh, yeah, like the one who was killing the prostitutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
You know, they
sorry.
think they're ridding the world of an evil or a disease or whatever.
And not saying that it's right, what they're doing. I don't want to sound like I'm a sympathizer of killing, but in the natural kind of aspect of just life, you have your dark, you have your light, and that's always kind of each one kind of wants to have its own domain and take over. Um, you know, that's just the same as saying that everybody is a saint. Unfortunately, not everybody comes here to bring light into the world. Some people come here to bring darkness into the world. It's the history of the energy that they've had for a very long time, which you know kind of, well, to put it into the best way that I could, in my experience of just trying to soul search and to see where I come from and whatnot. The source, or the original energy that spawned pretty much everything that we see, that we don't see, that we taste, touch, feel, everything, perception, extrasensory perception, whatnot. It started, and then it fragmented, and as these fragments of broken energy kind of moved along and traveled in quote unquote time, because there is actually no time, it's just a man-based measure of our reality. They broke off, and the history, these energies absorbed history of their fragmented experiences within the universe, within everywhere that they've been to. Now, some have formed kind of positive energies, and some have formed negative energies. And if we're talking in terms of energy, like we are, opposites kind of like repel each other.
Okay, I
So
need
then,
to hold you there. Hold that thought for a moment. We're
sure.
live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York. You're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and your co-host, CJ, Cindy John Pierre. And our special guest is, God, Drew Blank, Kenny Addison. I'm sorry. Uh,
That guy.
you can smack me later. Uh,
I'm a
we got we got to go on a short break, y'all. We'll be back in a couple of minutes or so. So don't nobody leave.
You are listening to WCJV Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, New York.
Hi, this is Benjamin Dover, and you're listening to Half Past Dead Paranormal.
Okay, everybody, we're back with Kenny Addison. I'm sorry about that, y'all. Um, Now, we talked a little bit, and you were telling me about devil worshiping that was going on, like in the woods and stuff like that, back up in there in no man's land.
Yep.
Um, I mean, is it recent stuff that you're talking about, or is it something that's been going on for like eons and eons, or what?
It's been going on for a very long time, and the most recent discovery of ritualistic behavior, they believed it was more Santeria in this case, but even still, there was mutilated chickens found with yellow candles, and just very, very weird circumstances
Now,
around it.
pardon me if I'm wrong, but aren't usually the chickens part of voodoo stuff, or
It could be that as well. Santeria is a religion based on what the heck is it? Afro-influential voodoo that came to, I believe, Haiti and a few other places, and it was adopted. It's an adopted form of voodoo. That's what Santeria is. So, technically, yes, it is voodoo in nature. It could be anything. They've also found bodies that have been, found in kind of strange circumstances as well throughout the years in these places as well. Like I said, one of the Massapequa Preserve, where in that area, one of the bloodiest Indian settler battles took place, is the Massapequa Preserve, and that's where sometimes they find these things happening too. So that's just another bonus to add to that area, as well as the history, that we know about, on top of people adding their own little histories to these places. So it's an ongoing thing, and one of the most one of the most famous kind of, I guess, yeah, it's famous, is the story of Ricky Queso, who is also very, we got the history of him, being very heavily into drugs, and he was also into Satanism and satanic worshiping and whatnot, and he was actually tried because he killed somebody, that owed him, or he thought that owed him drug money, and this guy was absolutely tortured. Also, another kind of
you're talking about Rick?
Ricky Queso.
Yeah, Queso,
Mm-hmm.
and
And he,
that's the book that we talked about.
Okay, I believe we have a call in here that wants to ask a question.
Caller, you're online.
Well, this is Mars.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Roger. I have a question. It's a little bit off the subject that you guys are talking right this minute. But this question deals with, it just doesn't come up often, and this is why I'm going to ask the question. What about your pets coming back as ghosts? Has there been any investigation, and have you heard anything, seen anything, or investigated anything about a pet coming back as an entity or a ghost?
well, from my personal experiences, that is absolutely true. Actually, there are two cats that once in a while come along in my house. I've seen them. My daughter's seen one of them. And in that, I kind of, it's her introduction into the paranormal, nothing that I force upon her or anything. It's just things that she's seen. She too has sensitivity, so, I try to explain it in a term which she can understand that won't either scare her, but will give her knowledge and, pretty much all of that. But yeah, it's very true. Animal pets do come back. They have, attachment. They have attachments just as much as we do. Most, and you'll find that, I guess, mostly in where we're at, mostly in domestic pets. Pets that have been with us for years upon years, that actually, become a part of the family. And in that, it's very possible for an animal spirit to be here. There's been tons of different kind of explanations of why they're here, being that, they're stuck in this state until they could evolve into the next form. If you believe in reincarnation, I'm pretty much open to anything. So, if I sound pretty radical with a lot of things, it's because I believe that, closing a door on a subject is just limiting yourself to a possibility of it actually being true. So, I'm very open to reincarnation. I'm very open to, past lives and all that, and spiritual evolution as much as human evolution and animal evolution and all that. It's just a matter of our what our energy feels attracted to, and then it's encased in biological format, pretty much, whether it be a human body, an animal body, or extraterrestrial or anything like that. We're not the only people out there. We're not the only beings out there. It could be, most people say aliens, like, either the ones that you see, Ripley battling against, or, ones where, you see from Paul and all that stuff, the Greys and all that stuff. There's microorganisms out there that not saying this is documented as true, but there has to be. I mean, it's not just we're in this lonely, plane of existence here, without any other physical friends from afar or near or whatever that, we just happen to not discover yet. And, it's kind of better that way, because I personally feel everything man touches, they either turn into a weapon or they destroy in some fashion. So I'm kind of okay with that. Back to animals though, it is true. There are animals that are spirits. They linger, just as much as humans do, or any other life force does.
So I got to ask a question in here. Mars, are you talking about like your spirit from a past life coming into your present life?
Oh no, he hit it right on. He definitely answered the question. I'm talking about, like, because I've had a personal experience, and I have an ongoing personal experience. While I was on vacation, I had someone looking after a pet cat of mine. And most unfortunately, like 2 hours before I got home, the poor cat passed away. And now, here and there and that, I swear I could see this cat sometimes out of the corner of my eye, still wandering the confines of the house.
Right.
So,
okay.
I definitely was wondering, because most paranormal shows, they very rarely ever talk about pet ghosts or anything like that.
Oh,
I'm more than happy to talk about shadow people and entities and all that other, but very rarely do you ever hear anyone talk about, your
why
pets.
Can't you have back. Shadow figures of animals as well as shadow figures of people?
Mm-hmm. And that is very true, because, sometimes the cats appear in... I know for sure there's one black cat, and there's one black and brown cat. They don't have eyes. Sometimes when I'm sitting in my house late at night, I'll feel them brush against my legs, just like a cat was. Funny part is, though, I've never owned a cat. We've never had cats here. We're not a cat family. We were a dog family. We don't get visits from my dog very often, at least anymore. But I'm either assuming, it's, her spirit has moved on, or, it's just like humans, either there's unfinished business, there's a protection factor, or there's a learning factor involved in every single living thing. And that determines whether they are earthbound, or then they move on, to, the next thing, whether it be on Earth or, in their travels, throughout, this plane or other planes of existence. So, yeah, cats, dogs, every kind of animal. You know, it depends on the person whether they're open to it or not. If there could be something looking at you right in the face. If you're not wanting to see it, of course you're not. And sometimes things happen where we have no choice but to believe and to see things. But to pretty much answer your question, yeah, animals have just as much a spiritual energy as humans do. There is no less. Mankind makes itself more important than other creatures on this planet, but in the universal sense, we're all equal. We all have souls. We all have spirits. We're all here for a purpose. We're all here to move on or to stay here from this present purpose on to the next.
Well, wouldn't they be just like a human spirit? Because a lot of times a human spirit will return to a place they're comfortable at. Wouldn't a pet do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could return to a pet form. They could become a human form, or they can become, a different other form. And that's what I was kind of touching on, before the break, was that our energies, there are some new energies that we only know as new because of our human existence can only kind of comprehend that existence. Pretty much you put anything, it's like putting, how can I describe it? It's like putting something really below water. Okay, it traps it, and the more you bring it downward, it traps it even more. And that's kind of like the energy in humans. Our physical makeup limits us to what we're to experience. It limits us to, what kind of experiences we're open to. And like I say, it's always on an individualistic basis. That's just who we are. We're all made differently. We're all made of the same, but we're different because of that energy, because of that, intelligence that we've had in our own energy history. And that's what I believe, that's why I believe some people, use more intelligence than others, not because, they're just smart. It's because their energy before being encompassed in this body was more aware than another person's before being in human form. Me, I would be very surprised if I had a past life. I've delved into my own, psyche, into my own past. I've used crystals. I've used everything. I kind of know what I'm here for. And that's my purpose is more to serve. And unfortunately more at the expense of my own well-being than not. But that, and that's it's all about personal discovery, seeing what your capabilities are, pushing yourselves to the limits, and becoming more aware. And, nobody could tell you otherwise. For a long time, I didn't, it was kind of like a coming out kind of thing, going into the paranormal for me, because, I live in an area where, well, if you say something that's not normal, well, you're just crazy, and then you should be institutionalized.
That's true.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I was just going to, isn't it most comforting, though, that science is actually starting to agree with the existence of other planes? In other words, like a theoretical physicist, Michio Kaku, in his string theory, states that we don't live in a universe, but there is a multiverse, multiple universes that actually sit right next to each other. And most likely there is an infinite number of yourselves. And when you die, you just go ahead and you just transport your consciousness into the next universe. And that's amazing how all of a sudden now theoretical science or physics is starting to agree with the paranormal investigators and stuff.
Well, they are, in a sense, also beginning to realize that, there are actually people out there that's proven to a point the existence of spirits after death. For the longest time, science turned their head. We're all just a bunch of nuts.
Oh, you're correct. They thought we were exactly. They thought it was nothing but hogwash and stuff. But now with the discovery of string theory, especially Professor Michio Kaku, who's the leading investigator into string theory and the multiverse, even he has come and stated in multiple books and on TV and interviews that most likely that, there is multiple copies of oneself and that you just transverse after you die.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thankful that, somebody decided to think outside the box. That hasn't happened in science for a very long time. There are, and it's always a culmination between, what the science, what science quote unquote discovers and popular belief. It's always a fight between those two. Some people, and I find myself doing that too, and not because that I'm a disbeliever in anything. It's just because of A, my personal experience here on Earth, and B, the capabilities of my experiences here. Sometimes things seem far-fetched, but is it absolutely not true? Heck no. I would rather hear somebody come up with a fresh idea than the same old idea. And, that gives me some hope that people are moving forward and not just standing still, because that is the most comfortable position to be in. There's multiple universes here on Earth. There's multiple dimensions here on Earth. Every historical thing leaves an imprint, and those imprints expound upon those imprints from our history and the history of the energies that are around us that we think that are inferior. And until science, kind of catches up to, to the idea that, everything is, everything, is equal, and we're all energy, we're all these energy and spiritual people. That's what's holding back science a lot, is that it's not just and I understand kind of why they're doing it, because they're trying to separate themselves from religions and stuff, which I understand. I'm not a religious person myself. I'm a spiritual person. And that was part of my journey. And it's not that, I don't believe in anything. I believe in everything. And everything led me to believe that religion, not one religion on this planet, has the correct answer. My direct communication with what I feel is the universal energy is what religion was supposed to be about, but man kind of, we're just going to add this because this is, will benefit us and all that stuff. Pretty much like anything else man is touching. I know I speak down about, mankind a lot, but I am very humanitarian. It's just that when you put anything in man's hands, like I said, it either becomes a weapon or it's destroyed in some way. So, it's kind of like that love-hate relationship. And I'm sorry for saying that, because I do help everybody that I can. I genuinely do, because that's just what I'm compelled to do. I don't stop. I barely, there's always somebody coming to me for answers, and it not only makes me, there's no other joy that I can think of than to somebody, to aiding somebody realize something that they didn't know before, or to helping somebody that needed help, that they didn't have before. So that, that to me is one of the main highs that, I guess you could put it in that way. One of the main highs of being a paranormal investigator for me is the joy that they receive for getting, the information and for getting the help that they need, that they wouldn't have really kind of, gotten on their own, or because it's not just we go into a place, we look for spirits, we find them, we leave, and, see you later, bye. When there's humans involved and spirits involved, we help both sides. And
that's
as
the
Roger,
mark of a true investigator right there.
As Roger kind of experienced from me yesterday, I was talking about Pilgrim State, and somebody said, "Well, can't you help all those people?" it's hard for us, it's hard for us as physical beings to kind of reach out to spirits, as it is, but then try to help a whole institution full of spirits that are angry, that are depressed, that don't know they're dead, that don't, and try to help. It's just thinking about it, and I'm trying not to do it again because it really kind of affected me last night. Just thinking about it, it's it's overwhelming, and B, it's like, how do you help out all these individuals? It's not just like, it's not just like a ghost wrangling where it's like, okay, everybody's got, the same problem. They're all mental, blah, blah. They're all here. Let's just move them all on. No, you need to tend to each one of these individual spirits as they were in life, an individual human being that is stuck here in for one state or another. So, and that's kind of why, I enjoy going to these places because, you know what, even if I can't help them, I like them knowing that at least I know they're there because they know that I'm there. They know that I'm there. There's been many occasions where they say, that's an investigator. There's, one of the first EVPs I ever got was I was just toying around with the EchoVox app, and I was sitting outside, and I heard a man and a woman, and they were just like, "Who is this guy?" And the woman replied, "He's one of them ghost hunters or whatever." And I was like, "Okay, I'm sold on this one," because that was like, and that uses just simple little clips, like, and they're not words, they're not, put in any forms, because I've gotten so many different sorts of EVPs from using this app and quite a few other apps that we have and ghost boxes and equipment. It's not just random. It's not random noise. Most of the times it's personal. It's personal, valid speech that they have. I ask questions and they answer. Which also validates my abilities because, I tend to doubt myself a lot of my abilities. I try to be as humble as I can. I don't believe in, if I were to go into my whole existence, it would take up like 5 more radio shows, unfortunately. But for me, I recognize the spiritual side of me and the human side of me. So there's always a constant conflict because I'm more spiritual than human. And I know that sounds really out there, and I apologize, but I know what I'm talking about. So that's one of my things. And because of that, I'm able to relate to spirits more because I not only feel them because I'm an empath, but I'm more of a spiritual person. There's more spirit to me than human. So, they know I'm there. I know they know I'm there, and it's a little bit easier to talk to. Have I ever captured anything on video? No. Do I wish I can? Do I wish I could? Yes. But you know what? I accept the fact that this is the only frequency that I am personally allowed as a person until otherwise stated that I can communicate. And that communication me, I appreciate just as much as if I were to get a full body apparition. They don't have to talk to me. They don't need to talk to me. They could just keep going about their business. Anything that I could possibly give to whatever energies are around me and whatever I could receive from them is a gift in itself.
I got to hold you right there for a second. We're live on WCJV Digital Broadcasting out of Youngstown, New York. This is Half Past Dead Paranormal Radio with your host, Roger Belt, and your co-host, Cindy Jean-Pierre, and our special guest, Kenny Attison. And we shall continue on. I wanted to bring up about Rick Queso.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that, and I remember reading that book and what a sick, evil individual this sucker turned out to be.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a kid when he started this mess, I think. He was like, I think he was around 15 when he started getting into the drugs, but what he did happen a little bit later on. I think you said he was like around 17 at the time. But
he died at 17 years old by self-hanging in jail. So he extremely young.
we were talking about this, and this kid got so, I don't know where the Satan part came into it, but the name of the book is Say You Love Satan, and this is what he did to this guy that was supposed to be his friend.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I think it was over a drug deal or something.
He thought that his friend was gypping him out of bags of PCP. I believe it was he thought he was supposed to give him 10, and his friend only gave him 5, and he thought he was gypping him out. How the whole situation started was they were around a campfire, and
Yeah, up in the woods somewhere, and I
it was
think he misled them. They were supposed to go. It was 3 of them, wasn't it?
yes, I think 3 or 4 people.
And he said, they were going to go up into the woods and camp and party or whatever it was, and that was to lure him up there.
Mm-hmm. And the whole theme for "Say You Love Satan" actually came from he during the attack that Queso was doing to his friend Lowers. He allegedly commanded Lowers to say you love Satan," but Lowers said that said I love my mother instead, and that's when pretty much he departed. So that's where that's pretty much where that whole thing came from, was that Queso commanded him to say you love Satan, and he refused to, and he was saying I love my mother up until he died, and Queso made sure he died.
Wasn't he like cutting him with a knife or something and telling him to say he loves Satan, and he every time he wouldn't do it he'd cut him again? Or
Mm-hmm. I'll read you a little tidbit from the notes or whatever. Lara, during hold on one moment. He was assaulted for about 3 to 4 hours. During that time, he was stabbed somewhere between 17 and 36 times, incurred burns, his eyes were gouged out, and stones had been shoved down his throat. So he was it's not just like he was stabbed. That would have been, unfortunately for him, that would have been a lot easier than the kind. He was mutilated. So
more humane way to go, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and this poor kid, every time he refused to say he loved Satan, he would cut him or do something to him, burn him or do something to him. And this went on for like hours, of torture before he finally killed him off and buried him in a shallow grave up there in the woods. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to wonder, and I know some of it had to do with drugs because his mind was screwed up on drugs, but also you have to think that there was that hidden evil already there.
Oh yeah.
To come out.
He was one of those people that enjoyed being evil, and if you invite, even if you don't invite that as a person, it happens to you. When you invite that, it kind of makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Both physically and mentally, because you're welcoming a possession to happen. You're welcoming the darkness that's already around us, inside of you, and you're, it's really, it's indescribable. I know I could, kind of try to tell you how it feels, but it's like a dark empowerment. I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's a dark empowerment where you feel almost godlike.
Right.
And that's, that's the same. It's kind of like, a spiritual / physical adrenaline rush. When that happens, it's one of those cases of perfect possession where the person wants to be equally possessed as the other side wants to come in and inhabit. So, I don't, one of the reasons why I don't really, now, people might be asking, well, was it a demon? No, it didn't. It doesn't have to be a demon. Not everything is demonic in nature, because nature is both positive and negative. It's a balance. Some people, and like I was saying before, it's not that I'm not sympathetic. Some people are here to bring light to the world. Some people are here to bring darkness to the world. It's just a physical manifestation of the spiritual battle that's happening encased in flesh. That's all it is. Does it absolutely suck? Yes. Does it suck when it happens to somebody that you know or that is close to you or your family member? Yes. You know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, that's what this world is made up of. In this specific physical dimension, this is going on all over the place. Through different other dimensions, through a more broader, broader spectrum. This is not just something that's subjected to human, just the physical plane that we're living in here.
Yeah, you got to think about it too. With all the negative energy, and I'm going to refer to the Christianity religion here for just a second to prove a point, but the power of prayer. Okay, everybody gets together and they're all praying for somebody to get healed, and it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all the positive energy that it's putting out.
Yeah.
Works the same way in reverse. With all the negative energy there is in this world, if a person has that slightest little aspect of being dark or evil, that stuff is just going to infiltrate them, and they're just going to become like 3 times more than what they would have been. Because all this energy is going to say, well, hey, this is where I want to be. This guy's good and ugly and mean.
Yeah. Well, to put out my personal story a little bit, there was a period in my life where, because of having, like I mentioned before, you say about things and it winds up, people wind up thinking you're crazy. I was institutionalized for a while, and I was put on a lot of medications, and in that, it put me in the same kind of spot that most people, have when they're doing it, for fun or whatever. It's the same state, no matter if you're doing it against your will or you're doing it willingly. I've been, I could and it's because of those experiences how I could kind of try to translate what these other people have felt, because it's happened to me as well. That's not the person that I am, because obviously I'm not a killer. I'm here to bring light to the world, not darkness. It's just that when you're in that state, you become almost hypnotized, and you could be influenced a whole lot. And I unfortunately was, because I was put in a sedative state. I was a minor, so I didn't really have a choice in my own quote unquote treatment. So they pretty much experimented on me with a whole lot of different psychotropics and other stuff. And some of it I still have effects from today, but some of it, have thankfully gone away. But that was part of my journey as well. I have, a lot of things in my life I had to see the dark in order to be propelled towards the light. It's not everybody's life is meant to be happy, but what happiness comes from, I believe the best, most genuine kind of happiness comes from times of turmoil and times of darkness. You tend to appreciate things a lot more. And I'm still human, I still get my days where it's like, everybody could go over there and do whatever, but when you sit down and think about it, it's like, this is why I'm here, and I can't help but love everything and everyone as much as I can, even though, like I said, for me it's a love-hate relationship, because I love people because I love helping them out, and that's what I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, I hate it because I feel all this negativity, and it really drains me a lot of times. And it puts me in a state of pretty much being sick a lot and being oppressed a lot. But that's part of my journey, and I've accepted that, because I've learned about it and gained knowledge about why this is happening. And this is, I don't expect anybody to understand what I'm saying, or to even try to comprehend what I'm saying. I'm sure some people think I'm a raving lunatic, and that's fine.
It's kind of like we were talking about last night about when I brought up bebopping into a room full of people being all in a happy-go-lucky good mood, and then within 10 minutes you're ready to bite somebody's head off.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is that
get
we're,
overpowered with it, you know.
you know, it's all about self-discovery. This is my personal journey. I don't expect anybody to live the exact life that I've lived, and I wouldn't want anybody to. One of the things that have propelled me to helping out as many people as I can is because I've seen a lot of dark times, and my story didn't start out that way. My first paranormal experience was at 3 years old. I saw a misty kind of whirlwind-looking thing in the corner of my parents' bedroom while I was still sleeping, in my parents' bed, and I used to see it all the time, and I didn't know what it was. I wasn't scared, but I knew it was there, and I felt it looking at me, and I was just intrigued by it. Unfortunately, as I grew up and was exposed to this world, we're not living in very positive times. So, we could be happy. For the most part, I'm happy. I'm a happy person. I try to be, I try to bring light to people. But unfortunately, when I'm bringing light to people, I absorb their kind of, negativity to some degree. So it's kind of like I'm the sponge that has to constantly, be squeezed out at the end of the day.
And the thing of it is bringing back the room full of people again. You can go in there, like I said, and be full of joy and happiness, and and you absorb all their negativity and everything, and you feel like just smacking somebody, and then they're walking around like la 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 because you done took all their bad crap away.
Yeah, but you know what? It bothers me, but it doesn't. The human side of me, it bothers because humans are egotistical. We want the $1 million houses. We want, to be popular and all this stuff. But the spiritual side of me says it's okay. You know what? I would rather take anybody's negativity away just so they experience that one moment of happiness. And I'll gladly accept that because I know how to get rid of it. That's not just something that magically happens to you. This is from my experiences and what I'm trying to, what I feel my mission is on Earth.
Well, do you ever, do you ever like, if somebody comes to you with a problem or whatever, do you like, psych yourself up for this experience, prepare yourself, I guess, for, which is the best proper way to deal with that certain situation if it has to do with like something on the empath side or something like that?
What I usually do when I talk to people is I try to feel them out empathically. I try to feel what they're experiencing, and I try to help them not just on an empath level where it's like well, this is how I feel you're feeling. I do it through the best way that I could possibly relate to them and how I could, and the knowledge that I've learned, so it's based upon, feelings and knowledge. It's not just, a hunch every time, for me. I try to equally do it. Same thing with investigations. I don't go in there and just say, oh, I feel a bunch of stuff. Okay, something's here. I try to document this to validate. It not only validates the activity that's going on there for the person, it also validates what I'm sensing as well, because I never want to give anybody, disinformation or something that's not anywhere near feasible, of an explanation. So, like I explained, like I was talking to you about yesterday, it's kind of like a radio an analog radio, and I'm trying to find the station to tune into, and that's all done through feeling. Sometimes I hit it right on the mark. Sometimes it comes in fuzzy no matter what I'm trying to do. And that's also because, based on individuality, some people you could click with more, some people you can't, some people, it's just how it is, in both the spiritual world and the physical world. So.
Well, and it's also, I think, has to do with, like we was also talking about, being blocked. And, if the person who's coming to you for help is blocked, you're not going to be able to get the proper information that you need in order to help them.
Yeah, also, sometimes it really, like I said, it really depends on the person. Sometimes I could it's really hard to describe. Some people it's easier than others. And with some spirits, it's easier than others. I've had people that are heavily blocked that don't, and it's not because they're blocked where they're not experiencing this stuff or they're not willing to give me information. It's just because they're in either a confused state or in a state where they're unsure. So I'm getting a sense of their unsurety, if that's even a word, about what's going on. But then, that's where the next step comes in. I I try to experience what they're experiencing because, and that's part of my job, is for me to experience this and interpret it the way I experience it. And hopefully they'll understand better, because I have the knowledge, from everything that I've learned and everything that I've read and all that, and try to translate it. I'm kind of like a bridge. On one side there's the human side, on the other side there's the spiritual or interdimensional side, and I'm just the dude trying to introduce each other. Hey, this is how it is, and hey guys, this is how it is. If you guys can get along, that's great. If you don't, then we're gonna have to work something out. I don't try to kick out. It really depends on the basis. Some people say it's unfair to leave earthbound spirits somewhere, but for me, it's more of a case of if they've crossed over. If they've crossed over and they're there protecting and watching over, that's great because they're at peace. They choose to come back. With an earthbound spirit, it's more along the lines where they're just stuck there. They don't have a choice. So in that case, I would want to try to cross them over or get them to cross over. And even that's delegating with spirits. You have to say, hey, listen, and try to interpret what they're experiencing in their afterlife, and try to help them move on to where they're happy and at peace. So it's not just a human element, it's not just a physical element that I'm dealing with, it's a spiritual element too. As long as they cross over and they're at peace and they're able to move on, and they have the option to move on if they choose to, that's great. Because eventually, along the line, a lot of spirits do move on, and that's why you have recycling.
I have to ask you this: where do they move on to?
They could move on to the next experience that they choose to live out.
Okay. Like for instance, do they become spirit guides for other people, or do they go somewhere specific?
They could either travel on to another. There's so many different options. It pretty much comes down to option. It's not how can I describe it? There's a okay, to put it into Christian terms, and hopefully you guys can understand this. How there's free will, but at the same time there's quote unquote God's plan. Well, God's plan is actually just the flow of energy in the universe that happens, just how energy is flowing. It could flow in a linear pattern. It could flow due to our quote unquote free will, and how we use our free will determines the path that it's going to go on the next time around. You know what I'm saying? And we could also change back to, let's say we get diverted from this path that we've been fragmented off into. We could go back to that path because it is partial free will. It's a 50-50 situation. If we were to just kind of bob along the lines of energy, who knows? I know I probably wouldn't be here. The reason why I'm here is because I feel the need to help something in this physical world right now. I've never had, in my deepest of hearts, I don't believe I was ever human before. I was more of a protector. I was more of a kind of, this is why I stumble, because I don't like really. I'm more of a humble person. I don't like, saying, oh, I'm this and I'm all that cool stuff, because I'm just me. I'm nothing special. I just do what I got to do. I feel that I was never human, and I was just I was more of an angel than anything, because that's just been in my will. And will meaning that how I feel deep within my soul, deep within my spirit. Will I ever be a human again? Maybe, but most likely not, because this world is just too messed up for me. I feel like it, and it's also a discovery where it's like, okay, I'm here because I know I need to learn the physical pain and suffering that's here because this is what I need to experience to move on to where I'm supposed to go next or where I choose to go on to next, but at the same time, it's like, it's just really crazy and it's really deep stuff to get into. And, it's, how can I describe it? It's just
I
our
have a
lineage.
question.
Sure.
Okay, Kat in chat there wants to know if you're a light worker.
I have the potentiality to be. Like I say, I don't. I guess if somebody else were to classify me, yes, I would be. I don't look at, and this is part of my human schmutz that goes along with this body is that I doubt myself a lot, and I really kind of underestimate myself. I know I have abilities. I know I could do a lot of healing. It's just that if you're not into it 100%, and it's not that I don't want to be 100%. It's just that I'm not. I can describe it. I haven't found a significant way that I could put 100% into it. I could study it more, which I'm trying to. And a lot of it is, and I'll be blatantly honest, a lot of it is due to human laziness. I'm very busy, with my other earthly things, of daily responses, work. I have a child and all that stuff. I'm trying to do all this, so I don't really have much time to really have to myself. Being an empath too, whatever free time I do try to set aside for myself, I'm trying to just release anything that I've had during the day, and it's an ongoing battle, honestly. I absorb a lot of stuff, not just negative stuff, positive stuff too. When somebody feels joy, that's great because you know what, I get the sensation of their joy, and that's great to feel. It makes you feel alive because that's how life is supposed to be. And that's how I always want people to feel, and that's what I always try to project to people when I talk to them and whatnot.
Kat in the chat room says she'd like to talk to you after the show. She can help you learn the light worker stuff more if you want.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm always open to learning. I can't guarantee that I'm going to that I'm going to. Oh, she said to shield. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to shield the best that I can. I haven't really found a way. I think it's either that the crystals that I use just get overly soaked with stuff that I'm absorbing, or and also I said, I don't really practice this stuff every day. I don't, and when you don't practice it often, you're not really 100% on it. I kind of reserve that energy for when I need it, but I try to put that energy more for other people than myself. I don't care how I might be, dragging my feet in from wherever I am. I might be very tired, but you know what? I try to save that energy, and I know my spirit can handle it.
She's asking if you cleanse your crystals.
Yes, I do. I'm a very big supporter. Go selenite, go. I'm very big supporter of selenite, because they it's like kind of like a self charger thing. When you put crystals next to selenite, I do put mine out in the full moon when there's not any clouds. And I do what helps me out a lot too is I do burn incense at the end of the day and do smudge. Honestly, for the amount of stuff that I'm just such a dang receptor, I would have to cleanse myself like pretty much about probably 5 or 6 times a day.
Data said cleanse under running water.
Yes, and not selenite though, because selenite it'll kind of disintegrate underwater. But yeah, I do that, and I also do it with fire as well, depending on the stone. I would absolutely love time to meditate. Like I said, it's just timing for me.
Now I'm going to ask you, because we got about 4 minutes left, and I want to ask you this question because I ask everybody that I talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the way I feel, and don't ask me why I think this, but I really do believe that the human uh, existence is going to become pure energy at some point in the future. We are all going to become just like the spirits are when they leave. You know, it won't be people running around living in their houses and stuff anymore like that. They will become a pure energy. Now, how long it's going to take for this to happen, I can't say. But I really do feel that that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask everybody, what do you think? Do you think that's a possibility? Because,
My personal thing, like, I don't really there's, in my complete honest opinion, if this world does not destroy itself first, I think eventually, because we're all carbon-based, and any physical material does break down after time. We're all biodegradable, including this planet and the time that, and I, always use time in quotations because time is just merely man-based. You know, all physical material and other materials that we know of break down after a while. Some take a lot longer than others. But eventually, yeah, I think this world might get to that point where, it does change into another form of energy. Whether that be, a good thing or a bad thing, it's just the flow of what it's meant to be. The sun at some point is supposed to change into a supernova, and the first three planets are supposed to get sucked up into it. Whatever happens first, that's what happens. We might not, but I can guarantee that energy will still be there. It's just that it'll be a different form, whatever form that happens to be at that time.
Well, and you brought that up, and it's a good thing because actually, I think Dita brought it up. But say if the world was to get destroyed, okay, we all have souls, and they're not going to disappear too.
No, not at all.
Spirit's still going to be here. This is just a hole that you're living in.
Yeah.
So if the world got destroyed, we would basically become that energy form a lot sooner, like she said, than what I'm expecting. But I think that's what's going to happen eventually when the human race does cease to exist, become extinct, whatever you want to call it. Our spirit energies is still going to be here, or maybe not here, but we will become that energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole thing is that, and it really depends upon the person too. If you look at it that perspective, well, why do some people return to Earth again when they're reincarnated? It's because they're compelled to existing in a familiar state. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's kind of, but here's the whole thing. If the world exploded tomorrow, how many people would still be stuck in the place where Earth used to be because they're so familiar with this?
Exactly. I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to bring this thing to a close. I want to thank Kenny for coming on. This has been a very interesting show indeed. Everybody in the chat room, Dita, CJ, Kat, Enoch, Mars ain't here anymore. Everybody listening in via phone, iPad, notebook, what have you. Couldn't have a show without you. Tune in next week. We have a very interesting show. It's about the Horsefly Chronicles, and it's a demonic story, and a true demonic story, by the way. So need to get that out there. With Philip and hold on, I can't remember everybody's name all the time, but I write all this stuff down. Okay. Philip Saracusa and Carissa Fleck. And just a little bit of bio that I read. This is going to be a very good show, very interesting. Everybody's going to love it. Kenny, I really would love to have you come back on again sometime here in the near future. This has been very good, and
Sure would.
yeah,
I would love
there's a
it.
lot more stuff we can talk about. So
He was
well,
talking
definitely.
like he was talking like he had five or six big shows in him. I'm like, yes.
that's what I'm saying. He's talking about it would take me 5 or 6 shows to talk about this stuff. So we'll give you 5 or 6 shows, okay, just stretched out over a period of time.
That's great. I love talking about this stuff. Anybody that's willing to listen, I'm willing to talk. So I mean, I appreciate being on the show. I appreciate both of you guys having me on, and it's been an absolute wonderful time, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kat. I appreciate
Well,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to say good night, folks, and we'll be back next Monday night. Same bat channel, same bat station. All that good stuff.